I want to welcome you all to the January 21st, 2015 Finance Committee meeting. Call this meeting to order. Could I get a roll call, Mr. Clerk?
Okay, we have present today Marilyn Jordan, Tom Warden, Dominic Arno, Jeff Langan, Bonnie Jean Catelli, and Ellis Bailey.
Any citizens' participation at this time? I'm waiting for them to run up the stairs. Okay, I guess we put those two different items, but I guess it's together. Town Administrator's Report. While Derek's moving up to the podium, I want to make a statement here. While the press is present, there seemed to be some communication let down, and some of it's my fault, okay? Some of it's your fault. Seems I received an email, and I'm the only one in the FinCom who received the email. I don't check my email every day. Having set our schedule to meet on the 21st, I was not in anticipation of anything important coming up, so I did not check my email for several days. Then I got ill, so I wasn't checking anything. So it's not that the FinCom was not invited to the school committee's meeting. I am the only one who received that email. All right, this is something that we'll have to rectify in the future, that whether that sort of thing needs to go to the FinCom inbox, in which case Kelly is instructed to distribute it to everybody on the list. I do not check my email every 24 to 48 hours. You know, I've got 5 different emails for depending on which hat I'm wearing and what I'm doing. So that is my fault. And I apologize to all the members on this committee for not communicating that to all of you. Somebody should have been at that meeting. My apologies.
I just want to apologize, since I'm the one that sent the thing, for any stress that I caused.
I just feel guilty, that's all.
Because, well, so do I. That's just why I'm saying it. I think your suggestion for a follow-up is a good one, because we need to do that. I felt guilty for us that we weren't there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to defend the fact why we were there, but unbeknownst.
Well, that was it. It was stuck in my inbox and I didn't look in.
So it did open up some communication with Kim that we can probably take advantage of.
Well, I think too, it's important that whoever we appointed two, you know, liaisons to the school committee, and there should be tight communication with those two people and Mrs. Shaver-Hood as well, so that we know what's going on.
What's going on, yeah.
So, again, we dropped the ball on that. My apologies. All right, Mr. Town Administrator.
Hey, before we go into the report part of it, is I just want to see if we can shore up the date for the all-day budget hearing. I think we were looking at the second week of February when we spoke last. I know we're thinking maybe the Thursday.
Yep.
And if that works for everybody, I'd like to put that in just so I can prepare the department heads.
That is the
for
12th.
that. Yes.
Let me check.
So February the 12th?
February the 12th, yes. Lincoln's birthday.
Oh,
so.
goody.
All day.
We won't shave. And that, what day of the week is that, Dirk, please?
That's a Thursday.
And it's gonna be all day, sir?
Yes, so I don't know if you want to split it up. What we did in the past was, I think in the morning we had the largest budget ones, which was police, WPCF, EMS, and then tried to move down the line. So if you could only make it a half day, you knew that from just dollar perspective, obviously not overall importance, but those were the ones we covered in the morning.
When do you incorporate the schools, and how do we go through that one?
The schools did they send you a link to their budget document?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Did everybody get it?
Is that what's attached to this?
Yeah.
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 Right here, right here.
Because there was not much discussion about that, so what I would suggest is after we have the all-day budget hearing for the town side, that we have a maybe a joint budget presentation as well. One of the things, obviously, if you either read or saw the meeting, they asked if there's any questions thereafter, but it's much like you when you receive a document and you're asked to ask any questions about it right away. There's some real concerns I have, especially when you take into account that some of the services, contracted services, were turned into full-time employees in FY15 and have not accounted for the extra health care, retirement costs, because don't forget that's paid out of the budget and that's added to the in-kind formula. So it's real dollars. However, it doesn't come out of the school's budget. It's just added to it at the end. And it looks like it's almost a total of 9 new positions added in FY15.
At a total of? Any idea?
I don't have a,
It was in the 900,000, wasn't it?
well, their total increase request
Yeah,
is.
the total increase request is
900.
900,000, which they broke down
Right.
into,
My concern is we made cuts this year
yeah.
for FY15 to balance the budget. If these 9 new employees came on board, how are they being paid? And what's the impact to the FY16 budget?
Right, we have how do we, you guys can educate me, you were here last year, because last year when we walked into town meeting, we really had the 2 budgets, everything was laid out, there was a 5-year plan. How did we get there, and what do we need to do to repeat that performance this year?
That was working with Mr. McMillan, Kim Shaver-Hood, and myself putting it together. I know that Mr. McDonald had a lot of involvement, who was the chair back then, and was just trying to get all the information together. But realistically, that got put together, that really came to light, although in different phases, at the end of March, beginning of April. So I'm trying to remember the time frame. So I think we'll have something like that. This is the first bite at the apple. It's, as far as a 5-year plan, I mean, it's, with the increases, it's basically shot out the door. I mean, we'll put a 5-year on there and show what it looks like, but.
Well, if you go back through the material which describes what the FinCom does, and I've been looking at other towns trying to get an understanding of, where we are, and maybe there's some best practices there. One of the things that some towns do is, at the beginning of the budget process, the FinCom sets expectations. And one of the things we could do is say, our expectation is year 2 of the 5-year plan is where everybody's gonna come in.
Yes, the only thing FinCom could do is that ours FinCom only, to be blunt, the strength of this FinCom is for advising town meeting and how it's established, and you have the right of the First Amendment. However, you can make those sorts of requests, but there's gonna sound awful, there's no teeth behind it for this
Right.
finance committee.
Right.
That's sad, because if you see some of the well-managed towns, that's what they do. And there are towns that are our size that basically spend less than we do and are more productive and more efficient. And I don't know how we have those discussions unless somebody's got to put a stake in the ground and say, this is where we're headed. I thought that's what Alan was doing with the meeting he had back in October, right after we finished town meeting. I got the impression from talking with Alan after that was a responsibility of the FinCom, that we were the legislative arm of the town, and the legislative arm proposes the budget,
Not really,
not the
no.
executive.
No, you need to read your charter.
I did.
Well, no, this is, you really need to read your charter. When you compare what the responsibilities are, or structurally set up, FinComs of different towns, it's set up very, very differently. But the charter specifically states it's the town administrator's budget. That was something that went back, my first year prior, the year before my first year here. was a horrible argument on town meeting floor.
That's the one,
Okay.
okay.
Yes. And then we had the consecutive interim town administrators from then forward, and I'm hoping we're on a better footing right now. Where FinComs did come up with budgets, okay? I mean, there were years when the town administrator just accepted what the FinCom said, and, you know, they brought the proposal books and dumped it in the middle of a table for the FinCom and said, here you go, here, make the budget, okay? After that first initial year with the arguments over it being a town administrator's budget and then a finance committee's budget as well, that was presented too. But that, it was in essence by the charter of first right to amendment.
Right.
Okay. They just structurally put it down on paper and said, this is what the town administrator is proposing and this is what the FinCom is proposing, this is their amendment, okay? I didn't really like it. I thought it caused a lot of
That's,
friction
yeah.
and a lot of fighting on the floor.
I guess what I'm trying to get is, how do you prevent that? But, you know, we gotta work some process here.
I
And
think
do you deal with Kim and say, this budget's unacceptable?
you can say that. Unfortunately, the caveat to it being the town administrator's budget is the charter has me bring forward the school's number that's been voted.
Yes.
So who deals with the school?
That has to be, well, we've, in the past couple of years, I mean, we've tried to work the three boards together.
Correct.
Or just, you know, just the three chairs if necessary at some times, okay, to sit down and have some discussions along with the town administrator to come to some compromises. I mean, it's really compromises, back and forth. What can you do? How can you solve this, et cetera, et cetera. He has to bring, you know, his reservations about certain things. He's talking about 9 new employees, et cetera, et cetera. That's a liability on his end that she has to understand over there. And, you know, we, as the recommending body in between, have to decide whether their idea is a good idea or not a good idea. So we definitely have to be in on the discussion and then hopefully come up with a good compromise by the time we hit town meeting floor.
Or tell the town to hold their nose.
Yeah.
Well, but the town, I mean, the problem is that there's not enough money to do it, and the town said no. We represent the people that said no. They said, go with base budget. So that's our charter, that's our responsibility to say, unless we think they're really off base. To me, it just, I don't know how to get out of this hole. And I don't see us having a process here that's gonna get us anywhere, to be honest with you.
The budget after the 25th will be brought forward. I'm going to show what's been requested by everyone, including the school, our departments and such. And then I'm going to also have a proposed balanced budget. Now, I can't force that forward, although there's some interesting talk about what it means to present the school's budget on town meeting floor. But I can tell you, at no time is a $990,000 increase going to work. I mean, just alone probably, if you look at our revenues, even with, we know that our insurance is no longer hitting those peak amounts of increasing by 11%. Part of that's because the employees took a major portion of that back and are funding it, and part of it's because of going to the Mayflower Group. So, yeah, but with what we have for revenues projected, it's not going to happen. And I can tell you it's actually 5 years of contracts for every single union except the police union that have been funded. So that's for the town side. 2 years of zeros, and then the 1-1 splits for the other 3. So those went through, 11 and 12, then fiscal years 13, 14, and, no, excuse me, I think it was, they go through fiscal year 16. So while we haven't had to budget that in the past, we moved some money over to settle the contracts. Though you're gonna see a major increase for FY16 just because of what the,
Well, no, that was clear in the 5-year plan. If you really looked at the 5-year plan last year, it was the fixed costs that represented all of the, that's what you just said, it's the amount of money that everybody owes is come due. I mean, you can't just keep pushing it out anymore, which means something has to give in current services or current things that are being done. If your revenue is flat and the people who pay the revenue saying they're not going to agree to any increase, I mean, you're between a rock and a hard place. So,
absolutely.
I mean, at some point you get to the point, let's say the school really wants it, to say the school should go out and do their own override and see if they can convince the town, just the school, nothing else. That's been done in some places. And if this town says no, then they just have to accept it.
How can they possibly do that?
Well,
They realistically can't without the approval of the Board of
they
Selectmen.
can't, no, but the towns sometimes, because of this dilemma,
But you still have to balance a budget regardless of whether you can, all right, so you're talking about letting the school decide that they're gonna push for another override, et cetera. Okay.
what are they gonna say to it? No, this
I'm
is a
sorry.
dilemma. This is a good discussion, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you know what, people can say that, well, if it was just the school, but the fact is, it was mostly just the school, okay? All of that stuff on there was children-based and education-based, and they still said no. So,
In a big way, they said no.
yeah,
It wasn't even a small way, it was a big no.
so, I mean,
I mean,
it's not,
no, I like the idea of talking about the big ones, okay. I'm looking at 20 other towns. And one of the things that we should discuss is the whole issue of what it costs us to do the whole public safety issue. Because we are very expensive relative to other towns. There's a new organization in Boston.
we've got big issues there, but can we hold that and let him
Okay,
finish
yeah,
what he's doing, and we'll,
Can we put it at the end when we talk
Sure.
about how we get someplace?
sure,
All right.
we'll open that discussion.
I'll table that.
Let the town administrator finish what he's doing, and then we'll,
I'm very interested to hear the comparison criteria.
well,
Just the facts, man, numbers.
And on the 12th, we're gonna meet where?
It would be in, actually, what I'd like to do is across from the Selectmen's meeting room. Oh, Bob, you want it in here? If we can do it in here, because it's a lot easier videotape, and they can do it in that way.
More professional surroundings in here.
we love professional
Bob's our
surroundings.
PR guy.
What will be the start time, Tyler?
I think we go for 8 a.m. on it,
8 o'clock.
yeah.
No, I
Here.
didn't give up my coffee off.
Invite them here to watch.
That's right,
I will do that.
Okay, so it's here.
all right,
What time?
8 AM. Bring the coffee,
What time?
you're in charge of the coffee.
8 a.m. You're bringing the coffee?
No, you're bringing the coffee.
I'm bringing the coffee.
I'll take a look at last year's
The school committee is
schedule.
selling the coffee.
Chalk it up to making some money.
I'll look at what
8
last
o'clock
year's
here.
schedule was. I think, again, the larger budgets, we either did 45 minutes with a little bit of time in between. And we usually do it as almost a working lunch, I think we did last year. We had some of the food come in, so if pizza works for everybody, we can do that. And it's not paid out of the town's budget, for the record.
Quick pass the hat after.
Be like
Okay.
church, take a collection?
Lock the door till you get what you want, right?
Right.
So that was the main one. I'm glad you've received the budget from the school and those documentations. Obviously, a lot of work went into that. How I found it was best from my personal end was when it came to us, it was stapled as one giant package, and I took it apart into the 3 packets, which was the slideshow, then you'll see almost another budget document, and then just almost a spreadsheet right there. So when I took them apart, it was much easier to digest.
Shit, I thought I lost it already.
When we're going through the, also tonight, and when you're going through the management letter, you'll see we're gonna be requesting from the reserve fund, the OPEB actuarial to be performed for about $11,000, and we do need to get that done before the end of the fiscal year. So I have the 3 originals and copies for all the board members. So I don't know if you want to take that up now.
Okay. Those are the originals?
So this would be to go into the accounting office professional services line. It's the FY15 OPEB actuarial. The last one was done 2 years ago. It was a cost of $9,500. We're estimating $11,000, and we need to get this performed by the end of the fiscal year. If we get this and go out for it now, we should have no problem getting that done. And that's the number that Powers and Sullivan, that's actually the report that Powers and Sullivan uses in their report, so it's required, and it's very informative. And that would be our new basis for seeing what our liabilities are and such.
Do you have any idea what is our current balance? You know, I always ask that.
You know, I didn't get the updated on there. I know we had moved it up from the previous year. Have we done one transfer?
I think so.
Just one,
But it wasn't that one. It was for the library,
the library.
roughly 6,000 to 7,000, I believe, which
Okay.
should bring you to about 90. So this would bring you right around the 89. Excuse me. If you brought it down to 90, it'll bring you to the $79,000 range. Which again, we never really want to deplete that, but this is a key thing we need to accomplish.
Okay. Does everybody understand what this is all about? No? Okay. OPEB, when you were reading the management letter, one of the things in there is that every so many years, we have to come up with, I'm gonna try to say this in the simplest way possible. We have to come up with what is our unfunded liability, correct?
All right, for
For our post-employment
benefits, right?
Yes.
that one.
Even
Okay.
though we're not actually paying it back, we have to know what that liability is. So this $11,000 for Powers and Sullivan has recommended that this unfunded liability be updated. So it's about $11,000 to have them go through the financials, employment records, et cetera, and come up with that dollar figure as to what our OPEB is, so that it can be listed in our financial reports correctly.
And that's our contribution to pay.
Well, this is an unbudgeted item that the town administrator hasn't budgeted for, so he's requesting us as the FinCom to transfer from the reserve fund $11,000 to him to get this done.
That's the
But they'll
GSB
come up with a
45?
figure.
They will
Yeah.
come up with a figure that must be listed in the town's financial records as what is our unfunded liability currently.
And will that be in the budget as well?
It will be,
For
no,
no, you don't budget those. We do pay as you go.
Okay.
If we had to, if you go to the report of the basic financials and you go to the RSI section, you'd see on the back pages 58,
Right.
59, go through it.
What are we at now? I don't even think I wanna look, or,
Yeah, so. And we should, what I'm interested in seeing is some of the, what happens with some of the liabilities with the changes in healthcare splits. And if going to the Mayflower Group has done anything on that, because until they actually, we can project all you want or think what the change is going to be, until they do something and put it all together, we wouldn't have the numbers.
any discussion?
No.
Questions?
The motion, we approve it. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the transfer of $11,000. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And it's passed. Okay. So we want to go into this financial report here?
What I tried to do for my colleagues, because it was wading through stuff, is to organize it into buckets. We could talk, because I just felt, I've seen this before. So, and you'll have to put up with me. I tried to get my printer to do it on both sides, and it ended up printing out 1 and 3 on one piece of paper and 2 on the other, so they're labeled if you haven't got a copy.
I actually printed it out.
Hmm?
I actually printed it out.
Print it out.
Yeah.
Anybody that didn't? You have a copy?
I do.
I have a copy.
All right. I hope it helped. I just, otherwise we'd be here until donuts. So the first part that we can talk about is just the, that you were really addressing is the whole issue of the closure and the basic, having journal entries not, I mean, those are the two material ones, which are, I can see why they marked it that way. The thing about it, I just made a note to myself up top, do it right the first time. One of the things we all learned when we were competing with the Japanese in the late 80s and 90s is it wasn't their labor cost. Is that they took everything and made a process out of it and made sure that the process was done the right way, and anybody who found an error could stop the whole process right then and there. So you never built a car like the Americans did with 5 guys at the end of the line with rubber hammers. Or the Germans who sent out 3 inspectors to go over it in fine detail. It just was right when it got done. So that's kind of my thought, is you were there. You might want to comment about the stuff you're doing there, because some of it's programs and some of it's the accountant coming in.
Yeah, one of the things was the unsupported journal entries. That was a prior year comment that had been cleaned up in 2014. So I think if you read in there, there weren't any issues with unsupported journal entries. It was the supported journal entries, and the main one is with the school department. So the town accountant's going to work with the school department, and again, we can't tell them that what they can and can't do. So it's actually working collaboratively, not bringing the hammer down on them.
Now, is that entries, like they do certain entries into the system themselves? Is this the situation?
Right,
And
let's
then the
yeah.
accountant has to fix them?
We have to fix them. Some of them, whether it's a mistake, whether it's, let's say you have a grant, you've been awarded it. Sometimes they'll expend the funds, but if the grant hasn't been entered in, you can't hit against that grant account. So when the time comes up later, they'll just reverse those entries. And those are the journal entries that they're talking about. So, and, Jeff is right on the point that there had been a culture of just do it, and then you can always fix it later. But with the accounting that we have, even we've posted for the assistant town accountant, and when he or she comes in, we'll see what happens. But that should take some burden off of the town account to actually be involved in more of these processes and such. but no matter what, the town accountant position in this town, unless we go for a few more staff members, is a working position. It's a, roll up the sleeves, get your hands dirty, so.
Wouldn't that person work to fix some of these things? Because that makes their life a hell of a lot easier
Yeah.
if they can get the process in place and then deal with the exceptions. Like, okay, if I can get everything else running, I know I got to deal with the school department, as you described, or grants, because the grants are in here as well
Yeah.
several times for how we account for those. It's, look, I mean, it's obviously tricky, but from an accounting viewpoint, if anybody's ever used accounting software stuff, and it drives my wife crazy, because it's goes in and goes out, you have to have both. And
See,
everything's
I'm
got-
like, I'm very territorial over, yeah, who's going in and messing with my stuff. So I understand, you know, I get this a couple of years ago, that when we found out that, you know, the school does part of their entries.
Yeah.
This is what I'm not sure you guys understand, is they do some of the entries on their side, and they process that, but then the town accountant is responsible for those entries. So they have to go in and make corrections. I mean, it's really a
Is he-
staffing situation. I mean, you have to
Right.
let them do that part, because you wouldn't have the staff to be able to do it themselves.
And the big thing with it is, we held everybody accountable in
Right.
FY14, especially for having supported. And that was the major fix, getting that done. Because if you don't have the backup, and if you're not doing it right away, well, you tell me what you were doing back in September, and what payroll you were processing, or, any sort of the bills. You're not going to know.
They don't remember, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But, okay, so you bring up a good point, though, because that says, I mean, they have to do some of the entries, and you want them to do some of the entries.
But you want to do it right.
They want it to be right,
Want to do
yes.
it right the
Do it
first
right.
time.
Yeah, do it right the first time. Is there an error report that when they make mistakes, because then you can begin to show somebody, this is how many errors you made. Now, let's set a goal to cut that in half. You have some of that in here about, working the errors down and getting
Right.
people trained, which is, I could see them asking those questions as well, and you answering, that's what I wanted to do. I mean, how are we doing and all that, and that gets back to, if I want to fix something, I got to measure something.
Yeah, as far
They
as
gotta
the
know what they're
training,
doing.
it's, I know they had a new payroll person for this fiscal year, so we know there's still some journal entries that are being taken care of, but again, it's working with them. So,
Yeah. If you can, I would strongly encourage, here's the error report, let's have a graph as to how it's gonna go down. Because that's the only way people learn, is to
yeah.
be shown that you're just constantly making mistakes and you gotta do it better. And that, then they later discover that it makes their life easier if they just take the time to do it right in the beginning.
It's like many things. If you go back to your school days, it was always easier to do the work right away than try and catch up.
Except that we all put it off to the last minute.
Same in life.
Um,
Right. What else we got here?
How about the capital asset reporting and the software and all that?
Yeah, we've got we've found the software, we've received the invoice for it, so that'll be implemented this year. So I think the cost for that was $3,500.
Do we have a physical tag system or something that says this is an asset? And the old Army thing about you lose a tank, it's yours?
We actually did have them come in before, and you'll see barcodes on anything from doors to
Okay.
desks to everything, but also there's the physical, such as the streets, there's
Oh, yeah.
all sorts of elements
Just wondered
on
what
there,
those
so.
barcodes were.
You get the barcodes in a minute?
Yeah.
Because I see them in places that I go, in businesses and stuff, and it's like, why is there a barcode on a door? I mean, really?
Because somebody
I learned
is
something.
responsible for it.
Gotcha.
Don't lose that door.
Yeah. That room better not disappear.
Right. All right.
you going down your list here, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm just kinda looking for some of the, anybody else notice anything on the, those were the biggies, things that I've dealt with and know that they can trip you up.
Yeah, and I've got if you want to, I'll hand this out to everybody. It's just the simple checklist of the month-end reconciliations that the accounting office does, so.
So they're able to pick up any mistakes that anybody's made within a month's time?
Not necessarily. When you're talking about the month-end reconciliation, you have to remember too that that's the attempt to get it done within the 30 days and such. Now, if you're keeping up with all the monthlies, that's great. You're going to have some times like the year end of the closing when you're focusing on some other items, setting the tax rate and stuff. You'll get a month or so behind at the most, but you won't pick up all the errors, and some of them, especially some of the journal entries, unless they're pointed out to you, you're doing the final fund balances and stuff. You may not pick that up. You also are going to have some of the fund balances that you've reconciled. They're going to have a variance that you're just carrying over till you eventually write it off through setting the tax rate, which means they'll actually lower your balance and your free cash amount by whatever that variance is.
But
we
the
have- do we
goal
have-
is to get them to go, the department heads to reconcile with the accountant's office every month.
Yeah, it's not just the department heads. You're talking about the fund balances.
Right.
This is through the treasurer collector reconciling to the town accountant's office, the big ones on there. That's where we want our cash balances from the treasurer collector's office to reconcile with the records from the town accountant's office.
Right.
It's not necessarily the department heads on there.
And that's
Although they
monthly.
should be tracking their own budget, but you'll see there's some of these accounts are different.
So the department heads themselves, when they come in with their monthly figures, do they end up giving them to the accounting office? Do they then get an accounting from the accounting office that they've reconciled their books with them, or no?
No, this isn't about the department budgets. This is the overall fund balances and such if you go through the line. Now, the VADAR account and the department heads should be keeping their own spreadsheets to go against the VADAR.
And do they
System.
reconcile them every month? Because it would seem to me that in these funds, even though, like the grant funds, and even, it sort of mentions other funds where there's different entries that they're just not, they're putting in the wrong accounts. So when they go to pull money out of them, like for instance, the building department, they put it in the wrong account, and then they go to pull money out, and then they find out they paid this vendor more than they should have paid this vendor. So how do they stop and every month reconcile the departments with the accounting office, with the treasurer's office, so that every month you look and say, okay, we paid out what we should have, we got what we should in every department? Would it just make no sense?
No.
It's a month-end, essentially it's a month-end close to allow to do a monthly statement, which is what you would do in a business
business.
environment.
I think every department head is.
Just track your budget.
Yeah, they're tracking their own budgets.
Yeah, it's-
I know that,
So they get a report, they know.
whoever it was, they're keeping their own spreadsheets, and they know that they've come in and they paid the vendors and what their labor is and everything else. And if they're unsure of it, they can certainly get a report from the accountant's office of what their fund balances are. I mean, they can see that, If they're concerned about that they haven't put something in that they should have, okay? But I don't think that they necessarily need to do that every month.
We have bottom line budgets at the end of the day, so your expenses are your expenses.
At the end of the day?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, at the end of the day, the saying at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think what you were just talking about, you were pulling out the situation with the building.
With the vendors and
Okay,
even
that
with
was
the
the
police.
right, but those are, okay. Those were situations that have been trying to resolve themselves over the last couple of years, okay? That weren't handled probably as well, and I'm being very nice about this. They were not handled very well in the past, okay? And since then, the accounting office and the town administrator, et cetera, have tried to make this operate a lot better.
Are you talking
Okay.
about the 53G accounts?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not your budget. Those aren't budgeted numbers whatsoever.
He brought them up
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
management letter under that, and that there still may be some discrepancies as to
Right.
that they're investigating whether they may have paid out more than they should have.
Right.
And that's great. They should be looking into that, but that's something that, those errors have been there.
Right, those are
while
the
back.
53G accounts are different than the budgets. So I'm sorry, we were just talking about two different things and
Okay, so that was part of the capture lost dollars.
Yes.
and their
Yeah.
moving, 'cause
Yeah.
they had a whole train of thought there.
Yep, we
You're
need.
still back in the, we just gotta make sure that the Ts crossed and the Is dotted so that everything is
Right.
found and we know where it is,
Right.
Yeah,
right?
you reconcile the 53G accounts. We go
Yes.
through those. That's from the planning office. So, we haven't had a planner, but the accounting stepped up and done some of the work, but you need to have somebody reconcile against it. So,
Right, and like she said, mentioned about the police details too.
Right.
It's a matter of, they're correcting themselves and knowing that they do. They
Right.
need to reconcile it with the police, their records, back to the accountant's records.
right, and that was a
So-
variance from several years ago.
Yeah.
That's not the current issue.
So that's not happening now.
You feel
No.
that it's not happening now, yeah, that,
But there is this discrepancy in both of those
Right, because
records.
you're always going to carry that forward
Yeah.
until you resolve that. So that's, and, we're going back several years.
Right.
And, just when you're trying to do your day-to-day operations and look back, and that's been one of the things since 2010 we've had
Yes.
the issues.
Yeah.
So,
That was something that they believe, this is pretty simplified, that those accounts for builders, that some of those funds may have gotten released
Right.
when they were still
Right.
money owed
money,
to
yeah,
the
they hadn't,
vendors.
or hadn't
Okay,
earned
so
it.
there is a discrepancy under those, and they're still investigating, and hopefully they'll get to the bottom of
Does
it.
that continue to show up in the management report until it's
Yeah.
100%, or do they have?
yeah, until you've got that resolved, they'll still be,
Is there an allowed variance? I mean, like, if I'm within 98%, that's okay?
no, that's one of the things with Powers and Sullivan. While we appreciate the hard work they do, you're hit for everything. If you're off $1, that's a hit.
You can't have an adjustment?
That's what we'll eventually try to. If we can't resolve it, you want to get that variance off the books. And basically, we'll have to figure out some sort of methodology that's acceptable
Because
to the
usually-
account.
I mean, again, in the audits that you do on the business side, you know you're not gonna be 100%. And so you do have a variance. Then the question becomes, I'm measuring people on the management,
Yep.
i.e. you, on what the total variance is. If it's 1%, okay, that's acceptable. If it's 5%, prepare three letters or whatever was the old joke is.
So yes,
Three
unfortunately,
envelopes, that's the.
here's my fun shot at the private sector. We don't get those luxuries like the
Yeah.
private sector does.
Just make a journal entry at the end, make it go away, that's what they say.
I don't know, I mean, based upon just listening to what you've got to fix in the past from what Bonnie's talking about, it'd be there forever.
And some of them have been there
Yeah.
forever. I mean, you talked about the ambulance services thing.
Yeah, that's another good one.
That was like, you love Jeff's, he types with emotion, okay?
What?
Because you went absolutely crazy over this has 2 exclamation points, 65% over 180 days old, exclamation, exclamation. And then it was like, what, $500,000 of what?
I'm looking for money.
I think it's supposed to be 1.2, but anyway,
What's it, Everest Dirksen used to say, sooner or later it's real money?
right. That was something we discussed, last year, the year before?
Last year we
So
did a little
put-
bit, but it
This
wasn't
is
clear.
actually, so we've written off, am I understanding this
Right.
correctly?
We've written out a portion. We've started setting up a policy. You'll see a policy being brought before the Board of Selectmen on that for the EMS department for collections and also actually how we go after scofflaws as well.
Okay, is there any chance, I mean, it's still talking about $29,000 discrepancy between the ledgers that we have and what the third-party agency, I mean, I'd hate to think that they
some of those, what happens is if you don't give if there's a write-off, so somebody can write in, and I don't really want to tell people this, but can write in and give a hardship letter, and some of those can be written off that way or forgiven. But if that letter and the approval of that letter's not provided to either to the third party or to the town accountant,
Okay.
then you'll have a discrepancy. And that's one of the big things we want to make sure is changed, that if there's anything that goes out, it has to be in triplicate to our billing department, to the town accountant, so everybody's on the same page. So again, so let's say the EMS department, their numbers now says, okay, well, we had 10 hardship letters, that's $10,000. Now our balance is 90,000. Everybody else says, well, we're at 100,000. Well, let's try and find the variances. Now, of course, you're talking about larger numbers than that, but
there's not a process to sign that off.
that's what we're establishing.
You're establishing a process, yeah, because
There
that,
never
yeah.
was, that's what.
anything to do with healthcare is gonna be loaded with that. I mean, that's just a problem with that
Yeah.
whole industry.
So,
On that third-party billing company, have they got a process for doing collections?
yes, including 6 letters that go out.
The ABNs?
The ABNs are only if somebody is going for a non-emergency.
Right. No, it's
So-
for both.
My
ABN.
understanding it's a
What is the- what do you call
non-emergency.
it?
Advanced beneficiary notice.
Right, so if you show up to my house and it's determined that's not emergency, but I still want to be transported, that may not be covered by the insurance.
Right.
And that's the main time to have them sign the ABN, because it's letting them know if their insurance isn't covering it, it's up to them.
But that's not just private insurance, Medicare as well. If you don't have an ABN, Medicare can, if you say, oh, we thought he was having a heart attack, but it turned out he just had indigestion,
Right.
Medicare can refuse to pay the bill because they said that's not an emergency, they weren't having a heart attack. You should have known better, you coded it wrong. So that if you don't have an ABN in place, you can't go after the secondary insurance company.
Right.
So it's not just for emergencies, it's for everything. When you go into a doctor's office now, you're not always going in for an emergency, but you always have to sign an ABN, which says, if your insurance company doesn't cover this visit, regardless if it's emergency or non-emergency, you are responsible. And without that, you can't collect. That's a flaw in the federal law.
Don't
So
tell
they
my
have
doctor.
to have an ABN, I'll run them off for you. Just hand them to the ambulance guy, they throw them in the folder, when they bring them in the hospital, and it just follows them right through, and they sign it before they leave the hospital. And if they can't sign it, whoever their guardian is, or whoever else, they sign it. You need to have an ABN in place.
Okay.
Those are Medicare laws, and regular private insurance laws. Without it, you can't collect a nickel.
They
Hardship
might be
letter
an
or not.
attachment, because I know most of that is electronically, they sign electronically now. So I would have to look at, it's been a few years since I worked with them. But it might be part of that assignment, we'd have to find out whether that's on that. It's like a master form, and then they actually sign electronically, they don't, it's not like on a piece of paper.
Where, when they get transported in the
Yeah, when they
ambulance?
get transported, it's like their computer, it's like a stylus, and they sign the
As
form
long
that
as,
way.
as long as that paragraph is in there. And it's-
They're taking responsibility when they sign it like that, then, is that right?
Yeah,
Theoretically.
yeah, but I don't know whether that clause is in there or not.
Hmm.
Yeah, but you
Would it
can say, I mean, there are ways of fighting those
Oh,
things
there's a ways
too, yeah.
around
You
every.
can say
Yeah.
somebody was on medication and unable to make that decision,
Right.
you
There
know?
are- There are ways around everything, but at least if you have them, it might pick up a quarter of some of the losses.
You think the.
I'm being optimistic? Okay, an eighth.
You think the agency would have that?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand why our agency isn't giving them
They-
to
they
us.
should-
Our billing
yeah, they
agency
should
isn't
have some-
handing them to
We
us.
should know what their process
They
is.
should have them.
Yeah, we should. All right, okay.
Okay.
Can I ask, can you give us sort of a layman's explanation of what all of this is about grants and why, I mean, why it said that our grants weren't listed from 2009 until whatever?
Which one's that?
Oh, God, I highlighted everything I thought I wanted to talk about.
Too many accounts of grant funds show a deficit? Is that what it was?
Well, there's that too, but the whole preparation
schedule
of
of
this separate
expenditures?
file here, reports of federal awards program.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two spreadsheets we had. One didn't have the, geez, now I have ABN on the brain. I was gonna call it the ABN number. One didn't have the 5-digit codes on there, so we were hit for that.
They made it sound like it was a bigger deal than that.
Yeah, because the two that we had together, one didn't have the 5-digit codes. It wasn't
On our
considered.
spreadsheet that we,
You're right. It was considered that we didn't track it properly,
Okay.
so.
Now, what
Is it-
about, you just asked us for $11,000 to work out the
OPEC.
OPEC, thank
Yep.
you. I was getting tongue-tied.
Yep, for GASB 45.
Thank you. Now, what about this, is this the school department's, responsibility for listing, what is it, student activities accounts? Says that the district is working with an external auditor to conduct a review of these accounts before the end of the current school year
Yeah, the auditors are working right now in the school department.
with the school department. Okay,
This
so
is
it's
just-
not an additional cost or anything that you know
I
of?
think the school pays for it separately.
this is, so I'm a member of some club and I put in my $20 and
Yeah.
they never
good
count.
Yeah, from any of the activities, or, yeah, whether it's a club or, you know, going off on some of the trips, things like that, so.
It feels pretty basic.
Well, I think that came out of, I mean, back when we were in schools, I mean, when you belonged to these things, you didn't pay for them, school departments paid for them. Nowadays, I mean, all of this stuff is funded by parents and students. So it was a matter of keeping track of, these internal accounts. I mean, that's only fair, you don't wanna, you know, decide you're sending your kid to France with the French club that you've been contributing $10 a week to since blah, 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 and find out when there's no money there.
That was a hell of a party.
Well,
All
So-
right, any other issues on the,
Well, some of the ones I think we're going to keep on having issues with are the uncompensated absences, not having
yeah,
them.
that's the last, that one to me is this, I lumped them all together because it just feels like the whole thing
Yeah.
we don't have a personnel director, right?
No, we don't have a personnel director. We track them, but we track them with manual spreadsheets. Because it's not automated and printed on the checks, we're hit for it and we'll continue to be hit. We asked Harper's payroll company if they were able to do it with us. They were not. That's our payroll company. We asked the auditors, Powers and Sullivan, who has an effective program, who's working. They could not recommend or list anybody. This is something we're going to the MMA trade show to see who maybe can do it, because so far everybody we've gone to is unable to do it.
We've talked to other towns, nobody's got a program to do it.
Nothing that's really working. Nobody's recommending one, so, but it's something we get hit
Is it the
for.
problem that each one of our union agreements has a separate, so we don't have, okay, everybody gets 2 weeks vacation when you join and blah, blah, blah.
Some, like the police, you get January 1st, you get your vacation for the entire year. You don't earn as you go. However, it's based on how much you worked the previous year. So therefore, if you were absent you were on 111F, you only get X amount of days. If you're a 10-year veteran, you get Y. If you're,
So many variables, it's tough.
and that's,
Who sits around and dreams up these days?
yeah, it was, a lot of those were, when it came down to it, was back in the 80s, right after Prop 2.5, a lot of the vacations and the way they were done were given in lieu of raises. No, you know, now,
This whole thing just
Yeah.
feels like there's not a program that lets you manage it. I mean, it's that, and this whole,
as long as it's, I mean, so they're knocking you off for not having it automated or recorded
Right,
as a liability in some way, that this is actually a liability, because if somebody, but there's only a certain amount of it that they can buy out.
Right, there's some of them, if you have over X amount of days, so 60 days on the books, anything over that you don't use, you can get 25% of that back on the sick days. Vacation days, that you only get that back, back if you retire and you're vested, so you need to have 10 years in the system to do that, so.
So, right now, each department does it?
No, we've got, one of my staff members does it and maintains it.
So everybody's
for
got to
the-
come to
right.
you, to that person?
Right, but a lot of for the police department, they have a separate staff member that does that, their administrative assistant. So I have a part-timer that does that.
So as long as it's on a spreadsheet and done that way, we're gonna get dinged every year.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the bottom line.
and we know it, and it's not that we're okay with it, but we're going to choose to fix the problems that you can actually fix while we're still looking at it. Again, we're going to the trade show and see maybe somebody has this miracle. Our own members should be tracking them as well, the employees, just for
They
their
probably
own
are, 'cause
sake.
they're gonna make sure they get
Yeah.
theirs. right?
Because one of the things, and I agree with this issue, it's unfair to the employees that, maybe they're just working and aren't taking some of the time, not thinking about it, to receive a notification. Hey, last month you should have used up your days, you've lost them, or you now have
Yeah,
1 month
that-
to use up
Yeah.
14
Most places
days.
send it out 2 months ahead of time.
Right.
Plan
So-
how to use it up or lose it.
And that's one of the interesting with not having a personnel director as well. We've got a 32-hour person that does the payroll, maintains that, including most of the hiring stuff. So,
How many towns use the software that we use?
Harper's payroll,
Yeah.
I don't know, but we bid out for that. They were the low bidder.
It would be just interesting to get a consortium together to go after them, because everybody's got to have
Didn't we
a...
used to do it ourselves, so the town did it?
We do payroll in-house, but we use Harper's.
Okay.
So they're the payroll company, but we enter in the data and
Right.
it gets printed
Are they-
out.
how
We can
big- are
print
they a big
manual
company?
check. What's that?
Are they a big company?
They're a big company.
Like an 80, what is it, ADP?
Yeah, not as big
Not
as
like them, but-
ADP, but and our costs are probably 33,000 a year, and that includes the town and the school. So that's roughly.
Aren't we restricted under, what is it, the way the charter reads about, I'm not gonna use the right term, but like the selectmen have to sign off on all payments?
They sign
call
off on
that?
all the warrants.
Thank you. So we're kind of limited, like, because that's part of their weekly signing as far as those paychecks, et cetera. So you can't really go to like an outside vendor.
The interesting thing is if the selectmen don't, because this is how one town accountant lost their job. If the selectmen don't sign off on that, and it's by Thursday, now the people that have the direct deposit get their checks. Anybody that gets a live check is not getting theirs until
Yeah.
they get signed off on.
So it's already oozing out,
No matter.
so that needs to be documented and changed.
Well, it's the municipality, and that's just the legal way it has
Is
to work.
that us, or is that the state law?
I have no idea. I
I think
remember
the-
from that incident.
Yeah, the
that's
selectmen
why.
have to review and sign them off. I don't know if it's state law, but it's not bad practice. It's an extra layer of security.
No, I
but-
mean supervisors, at least what I'm familiar with, always signed off on a time card or signed off on something.
The timesheets are different. Every week I get the timesheets from the departments. Departments have signed off on theirs. I sign off on the department heads. They get presented, they get in there. Most of my Monday mornings is signing timesheets for a good hour or so, which is
But
one of
then-
the issues I have. That should all be automated as well. Should be putting in the spreadsheets, and those should be electronically
You
submitted
should
and
be able to
accepted.
electronically okay it, yeah.
But that's come a long way
Okay.
because there was a time when people were keeping their own
Yeah.
records.
Correct.
No, that's,
And that's not good either, because
that
you're
just
getting a
asks,
whole lot of
that
other
asks
issues.
for all problems.
Go ahead, Tom.
Bi-weekly? Weekly check.
We have weekly checks.
Anybody going, Anybody doing bi-weekly?
Some of the school have some of the bi-weekly, but it's,
And what's the percentage of direct deposit to writing checks?
I believe, would have to say about 95% of direct deposits, because we've put that now into the,
Good work.
into the contracts as well, that everybody has to participate in direct deposit. We also have in the contracts, now with most of them, that bi-weekly pay unless everybody else, it requires everybody else to agree to it, so that's something we can implement it, but the biggest ones is the school department. So we have an issue now, unless the school is doing all bi-weekly for their persons. You want everybody is pretty much on the same page with it, because what are we going to do? Run payroll one week, then another we're going to be doing the bi-weekly, where you're running basically two of the payrolls. So it's kind of, unless you get everybody on the same page, it's still not going to work. So, but I know you can save some money that way as well.
Is there any hope of bringing all of these contracts into some uniformity?
I think he's done that.
Yeah, we've started
so.
doing that. We've started doing it. One of the easiest ways to do it, or one of the best ways without giving away too much of the collective bargaining, is you start doing it for future employees as well.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
I think, I just, in my experience and in my time here is that, and I'm sure, Tom, you've kept an eye on it, the fact that we are this up to date with contracts is amazing, huh,
It is.
Dominic?
It is.
I mean, I can remember being 3 years behind. I mean, really, it
It's
was
come a long
bad.
way. It's come a long way in 6 years.
And they were all individual and, specific to that particular union, et cetera, and you've done a really good job of bringing some conformity back.
The Blaze
Getting-
even sent a letter for you. Doesn't he want you to go to New York?
We have 10 out of the 11 resolved for the town side. The biggest one, which is still the patrolmen's union, that's outstanding, and we're in arbitration, so there's light at the end of the tunnel for that one.
Good.
It is a big, big difference.
Hey, I have a question on that. A couple of months ago, we had asked to see the contracts, get copies of the contracts. Can we get those?
Yeah.
Or should I go get it?
You can just come over to our office.
I know you were curious, it was probably a couple of years back that when you did your first really big settlement where we had gotten the changes in the healthcare and
Yeah.
all that stuff, that you had brought a bunch of them to us, and you could definitely see a consistency of, this was offered, that one, and some real obscurities just gotten rid of.
Yeah, because right now you're just going to see the MOAs until
Yeah.
they're all compiled, because we have an issue of, so contracts from 2003 to 2004, and then 5 through 8 or something like that, 9 through 10 with just MOAs attached, and we literally need to have them all compiled and put together. But again, who does that?
On the Mayflower implementation, where they're gonna basically do the health checks for us, how do we maintain, making sure that year to year, we don't lose control of that one, we really know what everybody's eligible?
They required documentation, but we're the ones that did it. It took Susan Green out of my office close to 3 months to get it done. The previous time we'd done it, it cost us a little over $30,000 to do. So while this is maybe something that we would like to do yearly, we're probably going to move to a bi-yearly, look at that, because I can't shut down my office again to do this. The
It's a
main,
lot, I mean,
it's making sure, reaching out to everybody from the 600 subscribers, getting original birth certificates, there's going from, you can't accept the marriage certificate from the church, it has to be from the clerk's office. So Susan took a lot of guff over this and did an excellent job,
but they're all on file now, so it's a matter of just, as your life changed.
Right. And that's one of the big things, because sometimes we found people where, they still had their ex-wives, and it wasn't required to have them on there, and, they wanted to put the new wife on there who didn't know, that's,
How do you get around like some of the mass law, healthcare law where, the definition of a family is the definition of a family? I mean, and it doesn't need to be, if you're the head of a household and you're supporting these people, whether there's a legal license of marriage or whatever, it doesn't matter under the healthcare laws. How do you get around some of that?
It was whatever documentation that was requested.
As long as the legal residence is there?
I honestly, I don't specifically know, but
So from an
I'd love to
ongoing
make
check.
something up and sound smart, but I
Well,
don't.
it's just, I know, well, the only difference is that as long as they're not, they're committing fraud if they're not carried under, if they're being carried under somebody else and they're
Right.
carried under this, that can be fraud, but you
Yeah.
have to accept whatever is their definition of a family, and cover those people in that household, as long as they are not being covered somewhere else. That's where,
Yeah, it's more important now that we have the subscribers and everyone like that taken care of in the Mayflower group, because when we were self-insured, if they you weren't paying a premium based on them either. Although if they got into an accident or something, we were covering it. But one of the issues is now, let's say we've got 600 subscribers, and realistically we should only have 595 or some of their benefited family members and such covered underneath there. Well, we're going to get hit on the monthly premium on that as well. So that's just one of the issues we think about.
that's a good thing to get
Yeah.
it cleared up. Okay.
Okay, last question I have is on the future of this GASB stuff, the two things that are coming up, and I noticed in the, we have 27 million in the financial numbers. I don't know which version, I wouldn't begin to tell you. It's kind of complex. And then there's another, 82 million that's not on the books?
Yeah, you'll have.
When do we start worrying about that?
Well, we've established the OPEB trust fund through town meeting, and when you look at it, at some point, we're going to have to start paying in there, and that was sort of part of, that's really going to be a financial policy, I believe, for the town. We talked about it a little bit. Once we've reached the stabilization fund of probably close to 3 million, you no longer need to put in half the free cash in there, lower it to maybe $100,000 a year, then have a policy to put X amount of dollars into the OPEB trust fund. Some places have borrowed, some places are funding it. There's probably 2 that have actually reached their arc and funded it, are fully funded in the Commonwealth out of the 351. So-
Weston and where else?
yeah. So it's, but as far as us really catching up on that,
Well, when, as we sit here on an annual basis and talk about budgets and so forth, and obviously this starts to affect the balance sheet at some point, which is in here, so the 27's on the balance sheet right now. What is that?
well, from there's 2 different, the GASP 45, you've got the OPEB liabilities, which are the future for any of the employees, for healthcare costs from the retirement and such. We've got another one where from just our regular retirement benefits, with Plymouth County, that we're going to have to fully fund it by 2034, I think they've moved it out to. And
So
Is
we
this the
have to,
pension?
Yeah.
yeah, so and I'm sorry, I knew it off the top of my head before, but we have to be fully funded by then, which is one of the reasons we see
That's
the
the 82?
increases as well. No, that should be I thought that was a 27 on there. Because your OPEB, I believe, is the $82 million. The
the what is?
OPEB, the other
It's
point.
27, isn't it?
I thought that OPEB was 27.
And it grew by $5 million last year?
What are you talking about?
It was
And
on the balance sheet.
Pension is 83 or something.
Yes, excuse me, the pension
The
liability.
pension, okay.
I mean, it's a fraud.
What?
It's not gonna get, we're not gonna get
Well, we're
there.
gonna have to, we'll be wrestling with it.
I won't get there, I'll tell you that.
I don't think there's any towns that are gonna.
We won't have to worry about it, right? Because we're not gonna be here, right?
But,
He'll fool us. He'll be here.
they bring the grandkids in.
Somehow maybe I'm mistaking, I had those, the minute I saw pension and the OEB charges, those two numbers leaped into my mind, but I'm not clear on what the hell they are, or what the heck, you know, what we're gonna do to fund them. I assume it's a cash transaction that we're gonna have to come up with in order to,
When you
bring
see
them onto
the,
the balance sheet as liability, and then we're gonna have to try and bring them down.
right, and they have a formula of what they believe the growth is for the actual
Right, yeah.
costs. You start paying into it, and obviously that's a compounding factor for the future and such. And it's all interesting because it's truly an academic exercise too, because it was just a change in the way of the accounting structure and the way liabilities were accounted for. So if you didn't do that change, these liabilities technically don't exist.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
But-
It's fictitious.
But
They
we've got
pretended they didn't exist.
We're spending $10 million a year or something right now on our retired employees. I thought I saw some number like that, it was about $10,000 a pop if we had 100 employees that were, no, it's wrong. Somewhere in there that we were already paying stuff out to retired employees.
Right.
And then we have another 500 or so that are active employers, 350 that are active, which gives us the 600 members of the health plan. Is that something like that?
Yeah, that'd be from just the Mayflower with 600
So as
subscribers.
the current active ones retire, and everybody lives longer, we're still gonna have to cough up money for them. I mean, regardless of this game, this academic game. we still-
There's good news.
Good news, okay.
As our older employees are retiring and have retired, they're no longer the 5%ers. They are our biggest liability. In other words, for X amount of years, they only put 5% away. Then the first pension reform brought it up to 7%, and now you have, which would be my level, which is the 9+2. So 11% of all of my paycheck goes into the pension or the retirement system.
This is like a
So-
401,
Well, it's
gets invested and you get to draw it down when you.
you don't get you still get, it's going to be based off of your years of service, your age, and then you're going to get a percentage. You can do a guaranteed percentage. You can have a lesser amount that if you pass, then it goes on to your spouses. Your spouse, not spouses, but
Good thing you asked that formula.
Cut that, Bob.
yeah. So you're going to see a change in that, especially but yes, people are living longer, but
Right.
there is required. So for myself to reach the 80% right now with the years, I would have to work till 67. So, which is,
It's
you know,
reasonable.
my father worked till 73, so it happens. But it's no longer, the only issue you have is with some of the public safety contracts and stuff. There's a minimum age for retirement, which is younger, which you have the
yeah.
guarantee. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
but of course, there's
get
at a
to
certain
retire
age
young.
you can't do certain
And
positions.
you,
Make it
they,
8%, and
when
they
they
don't make it
retire,
8%.
they start collecting a pension right then, is it correct?
Correct,
They
yes.
don't wait till 65.
No.
That's one of the hurdles. The issue of 40% public and 70% employee of the split in healthcare costs that we have to get review and get settled as to what remains of the remainder responsibility prior to joining Mayflower. Is that going to be a big number?
We paid out to, well, I shouldn't say we paid out, we sent a check to BCBS, so Blue Cross Blue Shield, of $1 million to hold on to from the trust fund. Harvard Pilgrim's been going pay-as-you-go with the payout. At the end of the day, the main thing that we need to know is that the employee's portion is covered in that trust fund. That's the main goal, because you no longer need to balance it since we've moved to another group, but the employee's portion needs to be covered.
Of
So
that, of the stuff pre-Mayflower.
Right, whatever's left over with the runouts and everything. So at the end, that's my main concern. Now,
And it looks like it is.
it does look like it is, but again, until I have a full audit time, you know that I'm very conservative on those issues.
It
I
look-
think we're fine. But also I believe we're going to have, with the move to Mayflower, a little money left over in the health trust line, since we're not just moving it all over. And my recommendation is going to be, depending on what the auditors say, whatever we have left in that health trust line, whatever we know the 12 payments we're going to have to put out, what the difference is going to be, that we move that into the health trust line.
I didn't really understand about you guys, but this confused me because they said it, they make the statement that it's 40, employer 40, and employee 60, but then
Yeah.
they listed the numbers, and the numbers don't say that.
They don't say
So I
that.
was extremely confused
Yeah.
by that. Is it just me, or, I
No,
mean, they look like 70, 20 to 30, to me, that's what it looks like.
we looked like a bad guy in one of them, but then the others we didn't.
Right,
Right.
so
So,
I was like, what are they talking about, 60, 40? It looks 70, 30 to me. I don't really understand that.
Yeah, the 7228, the final balance for 2015, and you see with the caveat, activity is presented as of September 30th, 2014, to report the town and employee fund balances prior to the town joining the Mayflower Municipal Health Insurance Group as of October 1, 2014. And with that, most likely what has happened is we put the months in for the town, and that the employees, whether the their portion, if you will, from their paychecks and such, whether that had been moved over yet on that. That's the only thing I'm trying to think of, because there's no way that we had that massive swing on there, unless, I know we transferred money in before from a town meeting, but, I'm feeling better with this, but,
how do you feel about, you said you had to meet the town meeting goal, so you're running out of runway. You're gonna all have that done?
It looks like it. What we've done is we'll put a placeholder article for a transfer. So, you can have it basically to the last minute, but we obviously don't want that. And most of the activity has gone way down from that account, so
We expect that, yeah.
through October, if you will. So I think it'll be much easier for them to audit. We'll know what the balance is from Blue Cross Blue Shield. And again, with Harvard Pilgrim doing pay-as-you-go, that's been easier for us. We also have GBS, who we've always had all along, for doing the health tracking as well. I think we pay them $400 a month just to track the run out of all of these as well, just so that we have an additional set of eyes.
So how do you feel about being able to meet your commitments on this thing by the time we audit 2015?
This year is a lot easier than the previous fiscal year, because we received the FY13 audit in April of 2014, which meant that you have roughly 2 months to make changes. Some of the changes that were done, we were not credited for because they were done past June 30th. So if it's July 1, 2014, you're not getting the credit for the previous fiscal year's audit. I believe there'll be some knocked off on this. I know the selectmen have talked about a goal of a clean audit. While this is what you would consider an unqualified, so a cleaner audit, do I think that we're going to do away with all the material weaknesses right away? No. But I think what our goal is to take the ones that And even to get to the spot, it was to take those that were most important, that were most egregious, if you will, to the financial health of this town, and take care of them. Now we're going to. This is going to sound strange because all of them are important, but the lesser fish, if you will, and going after them. Stuff like just we already know that we've got the for the capital items, so we've already got that put together. We know we've got some of the audits put together. EMS, we have the policy being put together, so we're knocking those off.
Well, they're always gonna have some. I mean, they gotta
Right.
justify their existence. So they'll nail you.
Yeah. And they're tough.
What?
They're tough.
Yeah,
They're
well, they-
really, which is what
You want them to
we
be.
want, you know. Unfortunately,
they're-
sometimes people will use it against you, but it's but we know what we've been doing. We know how much healthier the financial controls of the town are than over the last few years. So
I think it's good that they've been with us for a time now too,
Yeah.
that, we've been working with them and, so they get to know us. I mean, we're doing a lot better, even handing over the records more timely fashion than we have in the past. So I think that makes a really, really big difference too.
Did they bring in different partners each time too? You always want a fresh pair of eyes looking at us.
we have
That's
different.
not a bad thing. I mean, Bonnie's right. I mean, they know you, that's good. The downside is you still want them to bring in somebody that,
They have some of the younger crew will be different that comes.
I'm sure they
in
use
and
us as a
such.
training.
It's
you get through this, boy, are you good?
it's actually
Oh.
fun to not be some of the examples.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you go to some of the DOR seminars. So
So you feel that the stuff that you wrote in management comments, you'll be in good shape for the town meeting?
yeah,
Not putting
for
words in
the
your mouth, but
especially for the health trust one, and that's this resolution of the health trust is probably one of the things I'm most proud of for the finance team getting done, and the employees working with us as well to go to the Mayflower Group. Because I will tell you, unless we went to the Mayflower Group, there was no other way that we were going to have to come up with $2.5–3 million to put back in there to balance it out.
it was scary to look at it. If anybody's done any self-insurance,
Yeah.
Mhm.
one heart transplant, you're wiped out.
So, and again, for this year, we have the, even for basically the 3 months that we were self-insured this year, we had stop-loss insurance of $100,000.
Yeah.
So, it makes all the sense in the world.
All right, do we have any other questions concerning the audit report?
I would just thank our town manager for the administrator, excuse me.
You nearly promoted me, so.
Like you're trying. No, I thank you for enlightening us and educating us too as well. Doing a good job and bringing us to this point. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, do you have anything else that you would like to bring up with us?
No, we should have we'll have the budgets for the actual budget document, and then for the, before that meeting, all-day budget meeting, we should have the actual binders. We've ordered up the binders. I got them a little bit smaller this year because I think we had the 3 or 3.5 inch, which were they were too much, so. And I ordered the cheaper ones for the finance committee.
I could have given you back enough binders probably.
There's probably one year we need a binder collection, so.
I have a bunch of empty ones from previous years, yeah.
Yeah, we usually change the color every year, so if you're stacking them up, they're in
I
your
probably have several
library.
colors, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have nothing else for us. Do we have any other questions or comments with town administrator at this time?
I had one thing I wanted to, I hinted at before, just kind of looking at a matrix of various towns and what they are spending. Here, I'll give you one. Actually, there'll be a test to see if you recognize it.
Oh, this is your comparison thingy?
Yeah, I need some, this is a work in progress, so we just, oh, you really want one? Yeah. Okay.
Great.
You know, the only trouble I have with town comparisons is demographics of each town is
That's what I-
different. You just use population and, you know, income, but there are a lot more factors. That's what I have trouble with these. There's a lot more factors involved in it.
My approach is always if I can get 80% close, that starts you in the ballpark as to what you may want to look at and
But
so
I mean, you
forth.
take like towns like Yarmouth, you know, a lot of those are more retirement-oriented communities than,
Well, look at the
some of
number of
these
people they have in
towns.
schools.
well,
I mean, yeah, I would have assumed that going in. This first group of stuff under income and so forth, there is this is data from probably about 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. And so it's strictly for just a relative ranking. But what I found interesting, is you remember we talked about the Cape, and I wish Donna was here, because Donna, none of the Cape towns are like this. Well, it turns out Yarmouth is very similar to us, top population-wise, income-wise, and so forth. Dennis kind of surprised me, that is retired. But you know, between the two of them, they've got a school population of 3,500 kids that they're trying to educate. So they're bigger than us in that regard. And then all I did was basically take the primary household median income was the driver behind where they fell on this various list, and just picked off various communities in that area. What I was trying to find out, my first thought was, after seeing the school budget, is our cost per student, you know, where does it fall? And, you know, are we in the ballpark? You know, this is probably data that's on the education website for the state, and it's probably, I'd say, a year old. I don't know where they're coming in next year, but we're at 14,000. And there's some at 15. There are a couple others we may want to ask, you know, how do they do that? Like, you know, Carver at 12.9. Middleborough's an interesting one, same population as us, and it's at 12.5.
This is per pupil?
Per student, yeah,
Per pupil.
blows you away. You know, having grown up where they probably spent $6,000 on us, if we were lucky. My thought anyway was just for us to have some kind of are we in the ballpark when people ask, because I know when we did the override, a lot of the folks that I talk with would talk about the fact that, the town already had enough money, and maybe the schools are spending too much money. You can still argue that. I encourage folks to look at this report, because there's a couple of key graphs in there where it talks about our student population as it goes out into 2020 and beyond, and how it drops. And that's going to be a concern for the town, because you start to see the overhead, unless it goes down, or the cost of the buildings and so forth, become an issue. We don't need to study this right now. In fact, I think the best thing where it could help me is, you know, this looks weird, or this looks weird, or if they know something about it.
Is it available? Can you just send us out the sheet?
I can send it out yeah, I can save it as an Excel spreadsheet,
So we
you
can,
know, and you play, yeah, because like I couldn't find anything on the onset fire. And I will cut
on
Derek.
onset fire, did you say? I'm sorry.
The fire department and onset, because you gotta add onset, you gotta add Wareham, and you gotta say, how does that compare with other towns? Now, in Derek's defense, because he'll come after me right away, I don't know where overhead fits in, the benefits fit in here, and each town is different. I would say that out of the ones I looked at, Middleborough and Bourne, which again are similar towns, have much lower numbers, but they may be reporting it like you do, which you take out the benefits and they're lumped together. I didn't have time to go through and do all of that stuff.
Can you get the head count? Can you get the?
Yeah, oh yeah. Some of some of the towns have really very detailed stuff about all the stuff that we see, if I were a town employee, I might not, I might object to my salary and everything else being listed, but they're all there. Number of patrolmen, what they get paid, the number of road workers, what they get paid, all the other stuff, so.
Yeah, we listed that in the budget last year, just not by name, by position.
This is by name,
Yeah,
I believe. Some of them were by name, yeah.
yeah.
The school budget did it by name.
Is it by name? Yeah.
Yeah, they list, what do you call it? The Standard Times lists the employees by name from what they made the previous year.
Well, that's,
Calendar year? Calendar year.
yeah. But that would be something, I mean, if you look at this, what got me to start looking at this, I will get you guys a link to it. There's a group in Boston I discovered that basically is doing comparison of mass towns for finance committees. And you can go in and it says, this is the public safety budget and so forth. And they picked, I've got to call them because they picked the number of towns they said were like us, which I question how they did it. And it may be that they just had our data, but they didn't have other people's data.
Was Gardner listed?
What's that?
Was Gardner listed?
Gardner's listed, yeah. Is that one of, would you say that's like us or what?
Absolutely, actually. People don't believe it, but
Really?
Gardner socioeconomically is almost exactly like us.
Okay, it's right up there, yeah.
That's when it comes in. The DOR has a community comparison report tool as well.
So as part of this, I was just looking for this to be kind of a conversation as to, when we sit here, you know, does this make sense relative to other numbers? And I think we can get into each department's budget and we're gonna find things that we question and so forth.
I think the fire's gonna be so much.
I think one of the biggest questions, we talked about this last year, and I don't think we ever followed through on it, is, what I get all the time is, you know, we have all these administrators and they're getting paid all this big money. And we talked about doing comparisons to other cities and towns and what people get paid.
Right.
I mean, if that's a legitimate argument that we're paying our people too much money, I think we either need to prove that they're right or debunk
Exactly.
them that they're wrong,
Right.
you know?
That's exactly what I heard for the override when it got into the
Yeah,
police department loaded with overhead. That was a common thing, okay. The fire department, and one of the things that you start to think about, which I'm not gonna make an opinion on at all, but are there things that we've done for years which we no longer can afford?
Because the fire department has a water district, they have water income.
They're
You
separate.
can't- Yeah, well, you can't,
No, they're
you can't
separate.
use our fire department numbers to anybody, Thompson and Wareham.
No, here's our water department, separate,
yeah, it is, but.
broke it out.
Yeah.
Jeff, the only thing I might add
I
on
think it's
this
income
for,
from it.
What?
the only thing I might add for comparison is land mass, size of the community,
Yeah, we would,
We're
Which-
huge.
which
Well,
people forget about on there.
Our road miles, I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, road miles, I mean, just sheer size, because one of the, I don't think everybody tells you how we're unique, you know, I don't necessarily know that our problems are unique, but we are, being spread out as far as we are with the separate villages and such is one of the big issues that we have.
I would challenge you that I'll bet we're gonna find places like Yarmouth are not that much different. Yarmouth, I couldn't get the data. My computer bogged down trying to download it, which had to be at their end because, you know, Bourne, it just came right down, so did Middleborough. But Yarmouth was, the best you could get, was their 2011 budget.
Oh, yeah.
You must be using the same software we
No, I think our town administrator has got some nice forms and so forth. But if you want the detail, Bourne and Middleborough were pretty interesting for looking at it. And it's that idea about everybody treats benefits. Sandwich was another one.
Yep.
Same size and so forth. Economically different, but same number of dwellings and people and things like that. For some of this stuff, you know, if you're protecting dwellings and things forth or doing safety, it's a function of what are you trying to save, the number of roads you have. or the miles of roads you have and so forth, and obviously your accident rate or your crime rate that you gotta deal with. And those are the things that we'd have to take into account as we did this. But this just, it helps me just kind of trying to get into it and understand it as kind of where does it fit relative to other stuff. And 101, that my belief anyway, is when you start to hear we're different, that's just an excuse that you can always learn from somebody, and you start asking the question about, what can I learn and how are they doing that? The other interesting thing, and this was a discussion that Ellis and I had afterwards, but if you look at Plymouth and you look at Mashpee, look at the effect of those developments that basically bring in high-income people without kids, and what they do for the average income of the town. They jack it right up. And particularly if you look at New Seabury, you got 975 people and 400 homes, no kids, hardly any. And all of a sudden, the Mashpee's average income is 62, but 91 is made up of those 490, those 400 average about 91 to even higher income. And one of the things that I think we need to do is if we're going to take care of the number of people we already have in town, we've got to find ways to do something like this to raise the income level. Because otherwise, we're just going to keep taking money away from our current citizens, unless we get a new influx. So anyway, I really go at it, especially, and if you got any other things.
Jeff, in the school budget, in the education block,
Yeah.
school budget, what is this 41 million bucks? Am I misreading that? Or do I understand that? I don't understand it.
I don't understand what the heading is. It says school budget, dollars and
It's made up of the town's portion and some other portion added to it. I can give you the link to the site.
Did you pull that off of the DESI website? Or?
Yeah, it's on the
Yeah.
education site. There's something else added in.
Right, it's not just the,
It's not just the town portion.
right, there's also the grants, the overall spending in there.
Right.
Because if you actually look within
Our
the,
budget's $27 million.
the budget's $27 million. We actually, I believe for FY15, with the in-kind in there, what we pay for their benefits and stuff is closer to 34 million. Then they have additional expenditures from grants and such.
That's where you can say, sanity check, folks, you gotta look at this, you gotta look at that. That's what,
Right.
if we could help.
Right.
And this is part of having that discussion. How do we get everybody on the same page? And we're gonna end up pretty close to that.
Well, the interesting part is from the academic exercise is the minimum net school spending. So what the state requires is roughly around, it's either for FY15 between 30 and 31 million. And that includes the in-kind. With our in-kind, we're budgeting them $4 million higher than what's required by the state. Now, who's to say what the,
Well, no, we need to get into that. We'll have a good, because I think they have it laid out. The question is, have they brought in folks like the finance committee and outsiders to look at and start asking questions about it? I mean, I can look at it and say, we have an awful lot of students who are special needs. Yeah, I mean, it's huge. Who determines special needs? Is that something we decide? Et cetera. Because it looks, and again, I don't have data from other towns, so you don't know.
Jeff, there was a woman at the meeting that would be hitting you with something, right?
Oh, yeah.
But there was what?
Yeah.
There was someone at the meeting that was, she was very passionate. I think she'd be attacking you right now from the public.
It
Just,
shows it on the school budget page.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just,
You got to remember, I have a daughter who specializes in urban education and finds tough schools and failing schools, and that's what she does, and begins to recognize. She's tough. She's a sergeant. I couldn't believe that this is my kid in dealing with kids. And doesn't take any guff. And sometimes you gotta do
Did you
that.
see page 7 of the,
What?
this
I
shows
get
the
it.
difference, 42 million, so it was the total, actual total expense, this year.
To answer your
Difference.
question,
We gave
who
27,
decides
see
the special
the
needs, the school
difference?
department decides
Okay,
that,
Yeah, that's
It's
how
got
we
it
got-
broken
yeah.
down, see,
you know.
Yeah.
and what they use.
There you go. Yeah, revolving funds and grants, because it also, we used to be a net importer of students, and now we're a net exporter. That was another interesting fact.
Yeah.
Right. We've also had a mid-year increase. I think it went from, the school choice sending from about 128 or 130 to 158. So we've had a mid-year reduction in our state aid by, a little under $300,000,
So,
which means that we're going to lose that from free cash next year. But that's still cost that's going to increase.
those are the things we need to understand, just to get them out on the table, not that we can even do anything in the short term, but, in that 5-year plan, with the way things are headed, we may have to do some things or consider some things and start laying the groundwork for them before you go redo a school that you're gonna close in 3 years. Do you really wanna do that?
I doubt they're gonna be closing the school in 3 years, but.
Well, I heard with West,
The head count's
some-
coming down.
head count's going, yeah, it's gone down, what, 30%?
Because they're going elsewhere to be educated, or just because the
No,
bubble,
because there's
the
just gonna
bubble
be fewer,
funds?
because people are getting married later and they're having fewer
Yeah,
children.
well, there
Yeah.
was that whole bubble thing that there would be this bubble population, and then that was gonna drop off a little after that. But, I don't think it's.
If you look
dropped
at
that significantly.
just the onset West Wareham and Wareham Center, which is broken out in the thing below, you can see that the families and the kids are all in West Wareham.
There's been a substantial decrease from over 3,000 to, I think, 2,859
Their
students.
forecast is 1,900,
Yeah, 'cause
long-term.
what that is, and Desi will give you that's every child that's eligible to be educated in the town.
Right.
Whether they go to ORR, Upper Cape Cod Tech, or Bristol
Bristol,
Aggie,
yeah.
anywhere in between. That's the 2859 number. So, we actually, you take that number and then you reduce it even further by the.
That's a good point. Yeah.
By the amount of kids that are going to Upper Cape Cod Tech. We know that there's gonna be 12 more going this year. So it's even fewer kids in that 2859 number.
Well, the other thing that we have to talk about is because we are 5th from the bottom of 351 towns in the percentage of our students that go down to college, 60%. It's damn near the lowest in the state.
Wareham is?
Wareham, yeah,
Really?
yeah. Well, and does that explain the vote? That people don't care, don't believe in it? I don't know. It just, or
I
it's,
don't know whether that has to do with education, or the education that they're getting here, or just basic economics, that people can't afford to go to college. Okay, who wants to go to college, and you got $100,000 worth of debt when you're done, and you can't get a decent job to even pay it back?
we can have a debate about that, but
Okay,
you
well,
can
I'm
get.
just saying, there could be other factors in that, other than the fact that they're not getting a decent education.
But you,
It's demographic,
no, I don't think I think it's demographic,
No, I don't think
right.
it's demographic.
definitely.
Their family may not be encouraging them to do it.
Broken families, single.
Their
families,
family
there's a
may
lot
be
to do with it.
telling them not to.
That's why these are tough.
Well, they're telling them not to,
That's why
and
these- that's why these
they're
are
not
tough
gonna
to
be
use.
better off when they get out of college, and they'll be $30,000 to $40,000 in debt.
So I guess I think are you asking the
I-
question, do we tailor, do we push the education that Massachusetts says we're supposed to do, or do we tailor it to our folks here?
Yeah, a mind is a horrible thing to waste. I mean, and you've got the 60% that do go on.
Yeah.
You'd like to see, ideally, to my mind, the other 40% go to VOCAD or get something so that they can do something besides, wait on tables.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that whole concept is backwards now, because in the day when, okay, you weren't gonna go to college, so you went and you got a trade, you went to a trade school instead. But our kids that really need that can't get to Upper Cape because they don't qualify to go
They
there.
don't?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
so You can educate me on this.
I'm a
since I
tough
don't know.
step to get into.
Right, because they don't have to take the kids that
Yep.
can't get along or
Okay.
can't make those A
Disciplinary
grades. They want the
grades.
kids to take the A grades. That's all they want, and they have the choice to say no now.
And they,
So I think
and
it's-
the kids have
Yeah.
to pass some MCAS.
Right,
so they
and I
can do it,
think the whole concept is backwards. It's just warped and
Because,
backwards.
yeah, I would,
Also, what
It's
people
sad.
don't realize, in this area right here, you don't have the high-tech jobs, you don't have the jobs that need higher education. This part of the area is more of a laborer, working type of, you go and look for the jobs within 20 miles of Wareham, you're not gonna find any, the amount of college-educated jobs versus labor jobs is, that scale is way to one side. I don't care what you say.
You look at
No
the.
Google or nothing around here to go work at, okay?
Yeah, you
No,
got-
no,
you-
That's
you-
cranberry
you-
bogs and
your retail-
fishing boats and whatever else you wanna do.
Well, maybe when development goes through and you get a little more industry and technology coming out
Yeah.
here, but we missed that boat 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
This town missed that boat 20 years ago.
what's the fastest growing job area in the country?
I don't know.
Healthcare.
Yeah, I would say you're right there.
And we got a lot, well, that's an opportunity to train people and, what's the largest population? What's the, why is it growing? Because you got this baby boomer bubble that's gonna need a lot of healthcare in the next 20, 30 years. So we can do that
Greatest
for 'em.
scam going.
No, you-
Growing old graciously.
for anybody who wants to go out and thinks they're gonna get a job in labor,
Is Mass Maritime?
is unaware that the middle class in
Okay,
China is 250
Mass
million
Maritime
people.
coming here?
Get off the-
Coming here?
Thank you.
They've got some space in Bourne, and within that article, I believe it said they were also got some space that they're gonna occupy in Wareham. Is that wrong?
I
know
haven't
anything
been
about it.
advised about it.
You know? Mass Maritime?
They were moving a company out of Warren and was coming here. The
The
company's
coming here?
The company is moving out of their building that the Mass Maritime is taking in Bourne, and the company's gonna move to Wareham.
All right.
I heard that too, yeah.
It was a company occupying a building over
Yeah,
there, so,
they
but it's
took-
not the Mass Maritime.
They do
Mass
the same
Maritime is
field,
buying the
though.
building.
It's a 30,000 square foot.
Plant, I don't know what they do, but they're right downtown there by the circle. And they were gonna expand there. And then that company was coming out here.
We're gonna grow commercially, this town.
We have the land to do it.
We are,
so
there's
we
no
have the
doubt
land
about
to do
that.
it.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying, we should have done it 20 years ago.
But we haven't. Murphy gave us this. So, we gotta figure, and this, okay, this is a good discussion because, we gotta get a budget done. I agree with you. But in the back of our minds is, where does this lead? Because that's what the 5-year plan laid out. And I think a lot of people missed that. Understand that was, you got praised in the meeting, the town meeting for doing it. I would hate to lose it. If anything, we ought to use it as a guide. And we'll learn how to say no, yet, nine, whatever, to folks that want to spend more money than we got.
Yeah, it's going to be,
All right. I'd love, if anybody wants it, let me know, and I can send you a copy, you can play with it, and any input, and we could figure out what makes sense.
Okay,
on the same
so,
wavelength.
are you done with that discussion?
I'm done,
You're done with that discussion, okay.
thank you.
Any other topic of discussion at this moment? You have nothing else, Mr. Town Administrator?
I do not.
You
Okay.
gotta approve the meetings, minutes.
Yeah.
Everybody read the
Any
minutes?
other liaison reports to report?
Oh, sorry, I did mine.
What, you got a liaison?
Audit,
Oh, the audit committee?
yeah, I'm the audit.
Okay, go ahead. What do you have to report?
We just did it, that's why
Okay.
what do I have to report?
Nothing earth shattering? Okay then.
Anybody have any questions?
No other liaison reports? Any other business? Need approval of meeting minutes of January the 7th.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from January 7th?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Now, we said we were doing, I lost my calendar. There we go.
January 20th.
So, we said we would have the budget books by the 4th of February?
To kill it.
It's an admirable goal.
Okay, so we will have our next meeting on February the 4th at 6:30. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Anything that we should, special we should put on the, agenda meeting, Ms.
Well,
Chairman?
we will have the budget books then, and it'll probably just be a preliminary wish list.
Okay.
But any questions, you could probably do a quick review, not too much detail. But you might want to it'll give us an idea of what questions we might want to ask on the 12th, so we can come up with a format of
Should
the
we,
main things we want to talk about.
Madam
The,
Chair, if you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, if you have time, did you want to, I know it's the same night as the school committee usually, but did you want to invite them with any questions from the packets that
On the
everyone-
4th?
everyone has? Yeah.
I was gonna bring up that
They're
we should
presenting
maybe
their
put
budget on
on,
the 25th, is that right? To a public meeting,
Who's that?
school committee,
Is on the 25th of February?
of 25th of January.
Yeah. Isn't that a Saturday or something?
You know, maybe I got the wrong date.
28th.
28? 28.
Where are you getting this
Where
from?
you? Is
Yeah.
that,
It is, it's next Wednesday night, they're having a, meeting.
we better go.
On the 28th? Are they doing a public presentation on this, or what?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the one they hold over in the
Middle school
middle school.
auditorium.
And that's the 28th?
Yeah, that's just their vote. Right? Yeah, that's the school committee voting which number they're
Okay.
going to bring forward.
Is it a public meeting?
But it's a public
They're all
meeting and
public
the,
meetings.
It's their school committee meeting, that's
They're all
public.
public.
They're all
Yeah,
public.
And-
Oh, it's
and-
not like the big one we had, though,
but
Tom.
a lot of parents get up and ask questions and things
Yeah.
of that nature.
It'd be one.
Was
Yeah,
it?
Yeah,
That
that
was-
was,
Okay.
The
that
hearing
was last week,
yeah.
that we were told was gonna be in February.
Excuse me, on our agenda, Madam Chair, should we put?
All right, so what was the question, Derek? Go back to the question that you're asking me. Do we want to invite them to the 4th for any questions we might have?
yeah, I didn't know
On
if
the
you
budget?
wanted to, because you have a whole packet from them. I didn't know if you wanted to go over, if you want to, if we move forward with joint meetings and such.
Okay, we can
Madam
do
Chair,
that.
Madam Chair, that was
Why
my
don't we-
suggestion, that we should put on our agenda that, we should discuss the, budget. Now that we have it here to read,
Right.
I think next meeting we should have on our agenda to go over the school budget, please.
Okay, so the 4th, we'll try to do a joint meeting.
Either
With
a
the school
joint meeting
committee?
or if
Yeah,
they're
well, it
already.
gives
do-
us time to review it, and then if they're here, we can
Right.
ask questions also.
Can we ask them to send a representative if perchance they also have a conflicting meeting? But,
Yeah.
because I think we're gonna have to get into the point, one of us has gotta go to theirs and vice versa.
Yeah, you might be having to do that now.
Yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
that's the way we talked about having 2 people.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the
Guys
one
could
on the
alternate.
25th. I mean, what'd you say, was the 28th, sir? Next Wednesday night. So
That's
we're
when
not
they're
gonna-
doing their
We're not
vote.
gonna have a meeting, so I'll go. Because we usually have we usually have on Wednesday like they do, but we're not gonna have one on the 28th, so I'm gonna attend, okay?
Okay.
They start at 6:30 normally? 7, thank you.
more genteel with us.
Okay, so we've decided we're gonna have a meeting on the 4th, February the 4th.
And then the school
We're gonna
budget.
invite the school committee, or at least a representative from the school committee, to answer any questions we might have about the budget.
Correct.
Okay. Did you get all that?
The other thing is maybe we also lay out, will we have some idea what the warrant articles are going to be by then? Because we should.
I don't know.
Nah, it's a little early for that.
Last day to submit articles for the annual warrant will be on the 2nd. We may have some, I don't really know.
The petition articles are things like the,
Yeah,
that road
petition-
petition we
Yeah,
had the
the
last time.
petitions won't be until the 12th, but we'll have some idea of what you'll have by the 2nd, that Monday.
Yeah, with the annual, you have mostly the ones that show up every year.
Yeah.
Things such as that, so.
Yep.
So the road kind of things show up in the fall? Was that the pattern?
No, some persons could still bring those forward and such, but the annual will have the budget articles, will have just the, some of the election and all sorts of articles like that.
Okay,
so.
but not, yeah, because some of those things we need to be probably a little cerner about. If you're supposed to go to the planning committee, go to the planning committee before you show up here.
Yeah, unfortunately, those petition articles come out at the last minute. Yeah.
We just spent an awful lot of time and it
I
was,
think it's too early for that stuff.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you.